Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another review. Yet again I am very excited today because I'm looking at another brand new loco from Accurascale. This review ought to be very interesting indeed because today's model is yet another instance of product duplication within the model railway industry. Today's model is of course this, the much anticipated Accurascale Class 37, and this version of the model has only just now come out. This comes 1 year after Bachmann announced and then released their own Class 37 model in 2022, which was 3 years after the announcement of the Accurascale Class 37, which means that that was enough time for Bachmann's decision to create a new Class 37 to have been motivated by Accurascale's announcement. I'm not saying that is what happened, but I'm saying that Bachmann did have enough time to do that. The Bachmann Class 37 was pretty excellent and it came out of my review last year with a solid score of 8 out of 10. However, the Bachmann Class 37 was incredibly expensive compared with the Accurascale one. At the full price, the Bachmann 37 cost £244.95 and at the retailers it was a hair over £200 at £208.20. In stark contrast, the Accurascale Class 37 is just £169.99, which is £75 cheaper than the Bachmann Class 37 at full price and some £38 cheaper at the retailer price. Now, given the price difference, I would then expect for the Bachmann Class 37 to be much better than Accurascale's to the tune of about £40 at the very least. And the stakes are quite high here for both manufacturers, but more so for Bachmann because of their higher price. If it turns out that the new Accurascale Class 37 is as good as Bachmann's, or perish the thought, even better, then that would be quite the embarrassing blow for Bachmann. It would mean that another manufacturer, Accurascale, is able to outperform them quite significantly. That would also mean that Bachmann would be wise to avoid any other future instances of product duplication, because once customers know that other manufacturers are capable of outperforming them, who's going to buy their models? Well, me to review them, but other than that, I can't think of anybody. So there's a lot riding on this. I am fascinated to see what Accurascale have been able to do with this Class 37. Let's get it out and let's take a look. So this could be something of a day of reckoning for Bachmann because a lot of people, including me, have often said that Bachmann's models are overpriced, but without having two models to do an apples to apples comparison with, it's difficult to say for sure. Now though, we have a new Class 37 to go head to head with the Bachmann one, and so finally we now have that comparison. Let me show you the end of the box then. So the 37 I have here is the Class 37/0, which means it's one of the original ones. It is number 37043. It is product code ACC23063743, and this is the BR large logo blue version, which is Era 7. And as you probably already know, Accurascale have produced a huge number of different variations of the Class 37, and if you're interested in those, I will pop some affiliate links in the description for you. For now though, let's take off this sleeve and let's start unpacking this, because I think I've done enough talking about it. Let's see, the box design is beautiful. Yeah, I love the sort of dark grey and the very simple line drawing on the front. It keeps the logo within a bit of a surprise. So let's lift the lid, see what we're greeted with. Okay, a massive information pack by the looks of it, just what I like to see. So let's have a look what this says. We've got two cards, one for each eye I guess, which insist that you must read the instructions on the reverse of this card before operating your model. Okay, well that sounds pretty serious, so let's do that, have a look. Okay, so located underneath the 37 DCC decoder blanking plate on the main locomotive PCB are 6 slide switches. Due to the complex lighting arrangements of the 37, these must be set depending on how you will be operating your locomotive. Now, I wouldn't say that is too mission critical, so does that mean if these switches are not set correctly that the lights will blow up or something? I don't know, but that warning on the other side makes that seem important. So I think I will set mine to the bottom arrangement here, which is for operation with the DCC blanking plate fitted. All right, so that's something to bear in mind. Not sure of the consequences of not doing that, but like I say, it seems to be important. Right, let's see what we've got inside this bag then. The top booklet. All right, so the English Electric Type 3 BR Class 37/0 with car style headlamp. So it's a specific booklet for this version of the model. Right, unpacking, yeah, that's fine. Safe operation, blah, 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 blah. Okay, nothing too specific going on here. Let's open it up. Wow, just look at that. So we've got an incredibly comprehensive exploder diagram here, which includes all of the different detail parts and also the mechanism as well. Look at the size of that motor as well in the center, dual flywheels on it. Wow, looks like quality stuff. Apparently there is easy access to the decoder as well. There's just a magnetic roof panel which lifts off. That sounds pretty good if it works well. Removing the loco body shell, they say they do discourage it, however it can be undertaken by disengaging the 4 clips as shown below. Alright, so it's a snap-on body, but most people won't have to do that very often because of the easy access to the decoder, so that's fine. Lubrication, looks like we've got some simple lubrication instructions, general care, and also the location of the various accessories which fit onto the buffer beam, as you can see. And then below there, to fit some crew into the cams, you do have to remove the body, and then Accurascale do produce some colour 3D printed figures that you can fit if you want to, although as I understand it, those are not included, which is unfortunate. You know, I think a couple of figures could quite easily have been included with this, given the figures that were included with the Hornby P2 not long ago. Anyway, look at this. We have a Class 37 model locomotives in the style of an old British Rail manual. Let's have a look at this. I thought we'd already looked at the operating manual, but obviously not. So we've got a beautifully produced introduction and history of the Class 37. Pause and read this if you'd like to. Look how excellently this is produced. I am going to sit back and read this later on, but let's just carry on for now. A driver's eye view. Alright, so this doesn't look like an operating manual, this looks like a history. I think they just put operating manual on the front because it's designed to look like the real operating manual for the 37. But yeah, that is absolutely wonderful, and again, so much cheaper than the Bachmann 37, and the Bachmann 37 came with nothing as comprehensive as this, so already mightily impressed as usual. And then you've got a separate sheet here which contains the DCC functions and sounds, as you can see, which is very handy to have as a reference separate from any convoluted booklet, so that's great. But we need to look at the loco. I think it's been quite long enough, so time for the reveal, hopefully. There it is. A beautiful new 37, just waiting. Can't wait for this. This has been announced, like I said, since 2019. My God. Right, I'm quite used to handling the Bachmann 37 because I've had it for a year or so. There's quite a noticeable difference here, and that is the weight. It feels like I've just lifted a brick out of a styrofoam block. God, how heavy is this thing? Alright, it's heavier than, I'm not going to put it on the scales, but I'm going to confidently say that this is heavier than Bachmann's, and not by just a handful of grams either. Crikey. Right, we've got accessories on the underside here. Loch Lomond etched nameplates. What a quality feature that is. Very high quality etched nameplates as well. Yeah, they look way better than some that I've seen. So that's a fantastic inclusion. What have we got in the other pack? We've got snowplows included, we've got loads and loads of painted pipework, all shown in the instructions, and you might not be able to see them that well, but we've also got proper articulating screw-link couplings as well. I'm a big believer that details like this should be included for the user to fit if they want, and Accurascale have gone above and beyond in that department. So well done, Accurascale, that looks great. Now though, let's have our first look at the loco. What is the finish like? Well, let's reveal it and see. Very, very carefully does it. Okay, time for the reveal then. Here goes. Ooh. Yeah, it looks real sharp, doesn't it? Nice satin finish on there, loads of detail greeting me on the roof immediately, and the decoration looks absolutely beautiful. Yeah, what a cracking loco already. Right, let's lift this up then. Crikey, I tell you what, you need to go into training before purchasing one of these, because seriously, they're going to tire you out within a minute or two. This is the most insanely heavy diesel I think I've ever lifted up in my life. Yeah, it's incredibly heavy, folks. Very, very heavy indeed. But yeah, just look at everything. It's almost overwhelming to look at this because there's so much going on. The underframe looks so complex. The decoration is so lovely. There's an awful lot of detail to take in as well. Oh, for £170, this is a frightfully impressive model, it must be said. Well done, Accurascale. I don't know how they managed to make this model so heavy and yet pack in all of those other features described, but I guess they did. This has got a crazy complex lighting package in it, and I believe pre-fitted speakers as well. Yes, frightfully impressive. Anyway, let's have a bit of a background on the Class 37 in real life, and then we'll take a much closer look at this new model from Accurascale. Also known as the English Electric Type 3, the Class 37 was first introduced in 1960 and was very numerous, with over 300 examples being produced between then and 1965. The class wasn't really trialled in any way before the class was commissioned, and instead British Rail ordered 42 of them in 1959 in a desperate effort to modernise their fleet. And it paid off, with many continuing in service well into the 1990s, long after most other Type 2 and Type 3 locos were withdrawn. They didn't just get lucky though, other locomotives of a similar design were known to be successful too. Also, some members of the class were refurbished in 1985, ensuring that some examples could work well into their 7th decade of service. The 37s operated a mixture of passenger and freight duties, and interestingly, some of the early ones were fitted with boilers for steam heating, a feature carried on from the steam era. These locomotives are still very popular ones, and countless examples still exist and can be seen at various heritage railways today. They earned themselves the nickname tractors because of their distinctive tractor-like sound. 35 have been preserved and 66 are still in service, which is an incredible number. The remainder, sadly though, have now been scrapped. So there she is, up close and personal for you, Accurascale's brand new Class 37, and you probably don't need me to tell you how incredible this model looks, because I'm sure the model is doing a perfectly good job of speaking for itself here, but just in case you do need me to tell you, this thing is just wonderful. It really is incredible. The level of detail and yet finesse in this model is, I would say, even a step up from the Class 92 and the Deltic that I've already looked at from Accurascale. Now, this is not the heaviest diesel that I've ever owned, as I might have said in my excitement. Having put this on the scales, it's a little lighter than the Deltic at 678 grams. However, this is quite a bit smaller than the Deltic, so that is pretty much what you would expect. It is, however, drastically heavier than the Bachmann Class 37, and given how much more expensive the Bachmann Class 37 was, that might not be what you expect. So this is 162 grams heavier than the Bachmann Class 37, which is an increase of 30%, yet the Bachmann Class 37 costs 22% more than this at the very least. Now, call me Mr. Bank Manager, Bachmann, but the numbers there don't quite add up, do they? And it's the same story where the level of detail is concerned as well, because frankly there's a lot more finesse in the Accurascale model. The sharpness of the moulding is a lot better on the Accurascale. If I show you the same area on the Bachmann 37, you can see how much softer it is. And that's the case in a few other areas. Look at the roof on the Accurascale version versus the Bachmann one. Yeah, there's a lot more definition. Some of the differences will be due to the fact that the two models I have are from two different subclasses, but look at the fidelity in the Accurascale grille and also the detail down behind the fan versus the Bachmann one. Yeah, there's quite a big difference there, isn't there? There's also a lot more detail on the underframe as well. I think in some areas Bachmann obviously said, well, people aren't really going to see in this area, so we won't bother quite as much. Accurascale said, no, bugger that, we're going to put the detail there anyway, and they have. It is an even more complex model. Look at the finesse in the chains of the Accurascale model versus the Bachmann one. They're a lot chunkier on the Bachmann model, I would say. I think, to be fair to Bachmann, I ought to talk about a few of the things that Bachmann did best. I think the moulding on some of the moulded grills here on the Accurascale 37 perhaps looks a little bit softer than on the Bachmann one. I think this Bachmann grill looks more separately fitted than the Accurascale does, even though I think they're both a part of the moulding. And the Bachmann one does have some detail inside the engine room, whereas the Accurascale one doesn't seem to. On the few occasions you can see inside, it appears to just be the circuitry. Although there does appear to be LED lighting on the Accurascale model inside the engine room, which is a cool feature, although being that there's no detail inside there, I'm not sure what the benefit of that would be. Let's start by looking at some of the decoration then, which is really excellent on this. There is not a blemish on the model, as you can see. The join between the yellow and blue section on the body is perfectly crisp, as is the black section of the bonnet at either end, very, very precise. Same with the roof as well, the grey and the blue join is perfect, and the choice of colour here looks excellent as well. I've already mentioned that the finish is top notch, and indeed it is. Lovely satin finish on the logo here, and there's a lot of decoration involved. You've got the BR arrows with the little warning signs next to them, perfect prints. Little dog on the side, another beautiful print. I love the definition in some of these prints. Even the Loch Lomond nameplate looks excellent, even though there's an even better etched one provided. You've also got some other bits and bobs picked out on the loco, and the axle boxes are included in that as well, which have been very precisely picked out. The detail is obviously absolutely excellent. The underframe is peppered with loads of separately fitted details. I'm actually not sure how they achieved some of this, because some of these pieces really are tiny, but it's excellently done. The bogie detail is phenomenal, really, with the level of depth they've achieved with some of the detail here. Look at that, amazing. Not to mention all the separately fitted parts and the chains as well. The body is also adorned with glazed windows, as you can see, very fine door handles and handrails by the doors, and very finely moulded grills, which, while they are a part of the moulding, they do look excellent. There's some serious complexity on the ends of the model too. Look at all the separate detail here. You've got small etched pieces, separately fitted lamp brackets, tiny little grab rails, all produced in minute detail, and even the buffer beam looks marvellous. It doesn't have any detail fitted to it, yet the detail on the beam itself is definitely there. The buffers, I believe, are made of plastic. They certainly have a plastic feel to them, but they're sprung, as you can see. I was wondering to myself, why would Accurascale have done that? Well, the answer is that they've moulded detail into the back of the buffers, so I guess moulded plastic was the best way to go. But detail on the back of the buffers? I don't know if I've ever seen that before. That is insane. The front of the cabs have the separately fitted wipers on them, which are really tiny, fine parts. I love that. And the cab detail is absolutely exquisite. I'll try and get a comparison shot between this loco and the Bachmann Class 37. I don't think there's an awful lot in it, but I would say the Accurascale cab is slightly better. Marvellous level of detail, and also on the back wall there's a lot of detail too. Although the cab floor on both models is unrealistically high, which I assume means that neither manufacturer was able to come up with a motor bogie that was low enough so as not to impact the cab. I guess that's fair enough though, you don't want the performance sacrificing just so that you can have a realistic level cab floor. The roof is very impressive as well. Even up here there is a lot of separate detail, particularly over here, presumably where the engine would be. Loads of different separately fitted handles and such up here, and they're all very fine too. It really is a case of wherever you look on this model you notice another small fine detail. Most of them are separately fitted as well. The fact that Accurascale managed to pull off a model that is so heavy, so finessed, so detailed, and yet so full of extras such as the various accessories and the booklets and the lighting package is just outstanding, and it truly does put other manufacturers to shame, including Bachmann, with their much lighter Class 37, which can be up to £75 more expensive. Yeah, I think Bachmann's days of ripping people off with Class 37s are over, and I certainly won't be recommending anybody buy any other Class 37 than the Accurascale one here. So it's an absolutely amazing model. Hopefully these close-ups at least gave you some idea of what we're dealing with here, and it really is tremendous. I think next we need to get this down onto the track. We'll see what the performance is like. We'll take a look at the mechanism before, of course, coupling this loco up to something. The couplings are kinematic, although there's something wrong with the springing on these because they don't spring back to the center as they should. So how this is actually going to perform, I'm not too sure. Hopefully we won't have yet another coupling issue with an Accurascale loco, but let's find out. Let's get it onto the track. So there she is down onto the track, the incredible Accurascale Class 37, and honestly it is models like this that have made me like diesels, because I never really used to, but yeah, you can't help but be enthusiastic about them when models like this exist, so that's really good. I've already done the initial performance test, that is filmed, and I will show you how that went in just a second. After that though, I did a bit of a deep dive into the mechanism, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. Now the mechanism itself is pretty good. It's a high quality mechanism, it checks all of the boxes, but there is a little bit of that old form over function thing going on, in that this model has maybe been designed chiefly to look pretty rather than being ever so functional and serviceable so that it will last a long time. There are a couple of detail parts that get in the way of the functioning of the model, and it's not very serviceable and accessible. So let's get into this. First of all, there are no visible screws on the base keeper, which told me immediately that the bases were clipped on and not screwed. The Bachmann 37 actually did have its base screwed on, which I thought was a lot better. But there's another issue besides this, and that is of course the chains, which this time are attached to the chassis rather than the body. So it's okay for body removal, not okay for base keeper removal. I tried removing these with tweezers, but it seems to me that the chains are fixed on quite permanently. So to get you a look underneath the base keeper, I've removed a couple of chains permanently, which is unfortunate. You know, I don't want to have to throw a detail away like that. And I think it would be great if Accurascale could come up with a different solution for their future locos, maybe something that can just be pulled out temporarily and then popped back in, maybe even using magnets or something. Because at the end of the day, to clean the pickups or to lubricate the bearings and the gears, you would have to remove this base keeper plate. And when a loco is meant to last a lifetime, you will need to do that at some point, even if it's not for a number of years. Similarly, removing the base keeper from the loco was very frustrating because the base keeper and the bogie detailing came apart into a million pieces. I actually don't recommend trying this at home because it's a real nightmare to put back together. Again, that's a little bit of a problem for maintenance moving on. Underneath the base keeper, after I finally got it off, you can see we have just got a plastic bogie chassis, unlike the Bachmann one, which did actually have a die-cast chassis. So the Bachmann one is a little bit better where the quality is concerned, although the Accurascale one still has proper bearings on the axles, which is great. All-wheel drive, of course, and all-wheel pickup. If I pull one of the axles out, yep, you can see we've got a standard wiper pickup. Now I noticed when the loco was upside down like this, the couplings were not sticking as they were before, and it turns out that it's this little wire to blame, because when gravity pushes the bogie into the rest of the loco, that pushes against the coupling and causes it to stick, as you can see. So I'm a little bit surprised they didn't pick up on that. Similarly, the sanding pipes do touch and catch on the wheels as the bogies turn. Again, I reckon this should have been picked up on. This isn't such a serious problem because the pipes are so weak that they don't cause the loco to derail, but they do cause a slightly annoying clicking noise as the loco goes around curves. And because they're constantly being jostled by the loco's movement, one of them did actually come loose at one point and it dropped down and it was catching on the sleepers, and I've had to glue it back on. So you see what I mean about the form versus function. Body removal was quite easy though. I used some glue spreaders and with a little bit of coaxing the chassis slid out to reveal that it was almost entirely made of metal, which is fantastic to see. Very, very heavy chassis this. Here are the switches that the instructions mentioned, and I've set these so that they are in accordance with those instructions that I found, so hopefully the lights won't blow up or anything. There are some more switches on the blanking plate which I've just left as they were. They're all switched on. I didn't go any further than this with the disassembly, so I didn't get eyes on the motor unfortunately, but I think it is a 5-pole motor based on the way it performs, and I did see on the diagrams that it features 2 flywheels, so it's good quality stuff. You can also see the LEDs in the engine room, although these only work on DCC. I didn't get these to work on analog, and the same is true of the cab interior lights. They are there and they are connected via spring-loaded contacts, which means there are no wires in the way when you remove the body, but again, these only seem to work on DCC. Here are the LEDs on the ends, and you can see there are lots of different slots for LEDs to go here. I assume that's for all of the different variations of the Class 37 that Accurascale are producing, and you can see where the LEDs have been fitted so that they are behind the holes in my example. It's pretty cool. Of course though, if you want access to the DCC socket, there is an easier way to go about it than this, and that is to peel off the top of the loco, which is really just as simple as that. It's held on by magnets, no clips, so there's very little force required to get it off, yet it does stay there quite securely when you want it to. And there you go, yeah, perfect easy access to the decoder and the various switches, and there's no big gaps around the top panel while it's fitted in place, so it's perfectly subtle. Finally, the gauging comes in at 14.4 to 14.5, which is a little tighter than normal, although it doesn't seem to cause any problems. So there you go, it's a very high quality mechanism, it's just a little bit tricky to access and maintain, and there are 1 or 2 detail parts, like I say, that do get in the way of the smooth running of the loco. But with that, let's move on. Let me show you how that first performance test went. Okay, the moment of truth. Is this going to work, and how well is it going to work? Obviously the extra weight in this loco versus the Bachmann 37 is awesome, but it does mean that there's a lot more work for the motor and the mechanism to do in this loco just to move the loco before you've even got any rolling stock coupled. So, is it a good runner? Let's find out. Forwards direction. Does it work? Here goes. Giving it some power. Did you see that? Now, I should say this has not been running yet. This is literally its first ever run, and it is silent, it is smooth, and even more importantly maybe, it is slow. Let's try that again and see how well this loco can crawl right out of the box. I'm just easing it up. Look at that. Very, very slowly, and again, I'm expecting this to be much better once the loco has run in. Right, let's talk about lighting. So straight out of the box, having adjusted the switches as per the instructions, I am getting red tail lights coming on as the loco runs away from me, and nice bright headlights when the loco comes towards me, and they have a good colour temperature to them as well. That does seem to be all though. I'm not getting any lights coming on in the engine room, nor are there any cab lights coming on. Now, the thing is, the instructions didn't explain what would happen if some of those switches were not set as instructed. So what I think I'm going to do is just pop the roof again and switch them all on, see what happens. My thinking is, even if I do switch something on and then damage it, I'm not going to be running this on DCC as far as I know anyway, so it shouldn't matter. I'd rather sort of take one for the team and find out what happens during the review. So let's switch 4, 3, 2 and 1 to the on position. It'll probably be unrealistic. Hopefully that's why they didn't want those switches on. Hopefully it won't cause any problems, but I'll just do it briefly for a test and then I'll put them back. No, I'm not seeing any difference. Right, let's put them back and let's carry on. Right, let's see what sort of gearing we're dealing with here. So here it is at half speed. Yeah, it's pretty slow and controlled actually, but obviously I've turned it up to full speed. It's got a lot more speed to it. So actually it's making good use of my controller's entire speed spectrum, which is great. What is the torque like? I don't think, was it the Deltic was ever so good on torque? Let's see what this one's like. Forwards direction, 50% speed. Oh, look at that. Such a heavy loco, and yet it's still turning its wheels under an obstruction. That suggests to me a very high torque mechanism, which is great to see. And before I run this in and try it around the track, let's just do another crawl from the side just to show you what that's like. Yeah, it's moving. First the P2 and now this. Seems this latest wave of locos has just seen a massive improvement on performance. Look how silently that glides along. It's just wonderful, isn't it? And in reverse, I would say unusually this seems to be equally good in reverse as it is in forwards, which you don't always get. Yeah, you can just tell what a great quality loco this is. Gosh, very, very pleased. Right, well, with that, let's run this loco in. It's going to have 30 minutes in either direction. Let's start with forwards and 50%. Here we go. So the torque looks good initially. Is it going to slow down on the curves? It is not. Now I'm going to cut in a clip of the Bachmann 37 doing its first test around these curves. Can't actually remember what happened on the first test, but there you go, you can see it. It looks pretty darn fantastic though. The speed is so controlled, it is quiet, it is smooth. The lights look great, they're not too over the top, yet you can notice them. It's very rare that I will do a review and have to explain that, yeah, I like to try and talk about the positives and the negatives of a loco. And that, unfortunately today, I can't do that because I'm not really finding any negatives. And this is one of those occasions. What a wonderful, wonderful performer. You know, I test quite a few locos on this layout and they struggle and they don't run that well. And sometimes I wonder, do you know what, maybe it is my track that's to blame. But then I remember the handful of locos that performs amazingly on it. And I realised that actually this layout is great for testing locos because it really separates out the good from the great. And we see a lot of good locos on this channel, but not that many great ones. But this one is great. And it's not even running yet. So it's going to finish off with that. Let's carry on. And when I come back, we'll couple it up to a load and see how it gets on. All right, folks, be with you shortly. All right, I am back with a flywheel stop. Look at that, gradual slowdown. That's because of the flywheels, of course. Yeah, that went almost without a hitch. There was one sanding pipe that worked its way loose and started clattering along the sleepers, which I had to glue back in place, but I talked about that in the mechanism section, so I guess you know about that now. Other than that though, yeah, it's just as marvellous as it was when it started. So quiet, so smooth, and utterly faultless, never derailing or cutting out. A tremendous runner in every sense. I measured the pulling power of this loco, and on my regular Newton meter it went off the charts, so I had to use a meter with a more powerful spring, and the tractive effort is 1.1 newtons, which is enough for this thing to haul 60 coaches on straight and level track. And you know what, I believe it could do as well. Absolutely amazing. So to test that, I've just set up a relatively small rake of ex-LNER coaches, and I truly believe this loco will make mincemeat of those. Anyway, let's just have a bit more of that performance, shall we? Because it just is that good. I also can't believe how quiet it is. There is literally zero motor noise. I'll be quiet and let this go past. It really is just the wheels on the rails. That's all you can hear. No buzzing or anything. Yeah, it's really, really something. I love it. And let's have another taste of that crawl just because it is so impressive. Here we go. Bit more. I think we're moving. Let's go a bit more. I can't quite tell. It's one of those that can go so slowly that you can't tell when it's running or when it's not. There we go. It's definitely moving now. Accelerate. Oh, those smooth accelerations, they're what it's all about. I mean, you can make this loco run just like the real thing. It's so controllable. And in reverse, just look at that. And of course, it's got the torque to match as well. Yeah, it's excellent. Right, so I've not touched the couplings. I've left them exactly as they are. Let's back up to the coaches and see how we get on. Okay, how steady do you want me to do this? I can make it take a long time. There we go, that should be okay. Did it couple? Yeah, it did. So I guess if you make sure the couplings are straight, the issue with that detail piece won't become a problem. If it does though, we could just remove it. I don't think it would matter too much. There it goes. So I've set that at about speed 40 and we'll see if it slows down at all now that it's got a bit of a load. On the middle line we've got the Bachmann Class 37, which, don't get me wrong, is a perfectly fine model. I gave it a very positive review when I showed this on the channel last year, but at the end of the day this is not as good as the Accurascale 37 in basically every area. I think the mechanism and the serviceability is a little bit better, but it's not worth paying nearly £40 more at the very least to get that when everything else is a little bit worse about it. So yeah, go for the Accurascale one. There is genuinely no reason not to, and you'll have £40 change too. Crazy, can't believe the price. And since we've gone back a step with the new Bachmann Class 37, let's go back another step with the old Bachmann Class 37, which again I thought was lovely. You know, it's a better runner than the new one, but completely outstripped yet again in every area by the Accurascale one. Anyway, let's see how the Accurascale 37 behaves under load. So here she comes. I've set her to 40 speed, like I say, which is very sensible. Seems quite slow almost, but it doesn't slow down on the curves. Still can't believe that. And what I'm going to do is, just to show you the difference, I'm going to not touch the speed controller, but I'm going to swap that loco out for the Bachmann 37 and we'll see how it compares. Alright, so I'd say Bachmann's is faster, but it's slowing down already, and even more so. See what I mean? It's not as constant, doesn't have quite the same torque. The torque's not bad by any means, but the Accurascale one, absolutely rock solid. So, what can I say about this? Well, it's mind-blowing, frankly. Absolutely mind-blowing. I don't believe that there is any such thing as the perfect model. I think there's always some sort of compromise to be made when you're scaling down such a huge machine as this. And I guess the compromise on this model is, yeah, the detail parts kind of getting in the way and the lack of serviceability, but I have to say I think this is the closest I've ever seen a model come to perfection. It's just the whole ensemble, isn't it? The detail, the decoration, the finish, the features, the quality, it's just all absolutely top notch. And you know, we see great detailed locos all the time, we see locos that run well all the time. I do see really high quality models come along from time to time, but rarely do I see all of these things at the same time. And yet here in this loco we are seeing everything at the same time, which is rare, let me tell you. It doesn't happen very often, but it is truly wonderful. I'm very, very impressed. So I can highly recommend the Accurascale Class 37. I've got some affiliate links in the description if you want to pick one up. And yeah, if you're in the market for a 37, look no further than this, because it is incredible. Wow, what a stunning machine. So let's have some ratings then for this jaw-dropping new loco from Accurascale. The level of detail, needless to say, is a 5-star for me, because this loco has every possible feature. It's got etched nameplates, it's got screw-link couplings, additional snow plows if you want them, sprung buffers, intricate cab detail with lighting, full lighting package, pre-fitted speakers, top-notch decoration. I'm running out of breath now, but there's still a lot more that I haven't mentioned. It's just a 5-star. If anybody can disprove that, I challenge you to go ahead. Similarly, the performance, there's just nothing to fault here. It works so incredibly well. Masses of torque, even around my second radius curves, constant speed, no slowdown, no noise, perfectly smooth. Incredible at a crawl as well. I can't remember the last time I saw such a good performer. If I could give it 6 stars, I would. It is very much a 5-star performer. The pulling power, I put the tractive effort into my equation and it spat out 60 coaches on straight and level track. That makes it number 6, like I say, on my best pullers of all time list, and it is 0.1 Newton more than the Bachmann Class 37, so that's really impressive as well. The mechanism is the weakest aspect of the loco, not because the mechanism itself is poor quality, but because there are issues with the couplings and the bogies catching on various detail. and also the lack of serviceability, particularly of the bogies, which is going to make it a challenge to maintain this loco moving forward. Other than that though, it's got a very high quality motor, even though I didn't get eyes on it. Proper flywheels, bearings on the axles, all-wheel pickup, all-wheel drive. It is the full package, very, very impressive, other than the accessibility issues. The quality then, again, let's reel off another 5-star because it is spot on. The build quality, very high. There are so many tiny separately fitted parts on this model, yet I would say every single one of them was perfectly straightly fitted. I have not been party to any faults in the build at all. Finish, spot on. Decoration, spot on. It's incredibly heavy at over 600 grams. That's really impressive. How can you fault it? I've got to give it 5-star. Value for money then, again, it's got to be 5-star. £38 cheaper than Bachmann's new Class 37, despite it being better in pretty much every area, except for mechanism, I suppose. And at full price, the difference is even greater at £75 difference. I think for £169.99, despite that being a lot of money, and sure it is, I still think this is one of the best value models you can get in terms of sheer features for your cash. Absolutely incredible. So that's a very well-deserved score of 9.52 out of 10, or a grade of A. Well, of course it is, because it's almost faultless. It's been a very long time since I've given a score as high as this, but I think you would agree, if you've watched all of the video, it's deserved, isn't it? I really think it is. So into the logbook it goes, and it is top place. And again, that is very well deserved because it's a wonderful loco and I can highly recommend it. Well folks, thank you so much for tuning in for yet another review. What a treat this loco was. I've heard good things about the 37 and I knew it was going to be good because the Deltic was great and the Class 92 was great as well. But this, if possible, has stepped it up another notch. And the fact that Accurascale have pulled this off for £169.99, which is quite a bit cheaper than most other manufacturers, well, that means that those other manufacturers are in trouble. Bachmann, for instance, I don't know what they're going to do with their 37 now, but if they want to bring it back with another batch, it's going to have to be cheaper by quite a long way, isn't it? Otherwise, no one in their right mind would buy it when the Accurascale version is another offering. So yeah, what this means for Bachmann moving forward, I'm not sure. Because based on the locos I've seen so far, I would go for Accurascale every time, wherever Bachmann and Accurascale produce the same model at the same time. And frankly, I'm happy with that outcome. I've always said Bachmann models are too expensive, and here Accurascale have very much proved that by producing such an incredible model that betters the Bachmann one in pretty much every area, and for massively less money as well. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you think about the Accurascale Class 37. What do you think about it? Is it as good as I think? Have I just been carried away by the good looks and excellent performance? What do you think about it? Please do let me know. Like I say though, thank you for watching, and I will see you very, very soon for another review. Alright, cheers folks, you take care.